Hey y'all, welcome to Killer Queens, a true crime podcast. I'm your host Torella, and like most millennials, I've always had an obsession with true crime. On KQ, you'll find light true crime stories, millennial hypes and gripes, some adult language, and maybe a special guest here and there. Just like a 90s sleepover, we're just a couple BFFs hanging out, so gather round and let's launch right into it. This episode contains discussion of drug use and sexual assault. Listener discretion is advised. In the early morning hours of July 8th, 2013, 17-year-old Molly Miller and 22-year-old Colt Haynes seemingly disappeared into thin air. The two were involved in a high-speed police chase that ended with the county sheriff telling officers to just stop the chase. The driver of the vehicle fled, leaving Molly and Colt in the backwoods of Oklahoma in the middle of the night. In an area flooded with drug production, sales, and use, many locals are believed to know exactly what happened to Molly and Colt, but nobody is talking. Furthermore, some people believe that Molly was never even meant to be in the car that night in the first place. More than 10 years after that car chase that ended in rural Love County, Oklahoma, Colt and Molly's friends and loved ones are still searching. You guys. We needed a window open scale on this one. I mean, we probably need one for every case, but this one, you are going to, it's like fucking Wrecking Ball level, just Miley Cyrus that bitch. Bulldoze, start over. We must rebuild. Whoosh, all gone. There's just nothing that can be done. There's no way around it, okay? So get ready for that. You're going to really be so excited at law enforcement and literally all the people. It's insane. Okay. So we do want to give a hey girl thanks to Devin Leanne Schouten, I think, for requesting the case. And then a hey girl thanks to Madison for writing it up. All right, so let's get into our victims and their history. Let's talk about Molly and Colt. Molly Miller was born on April 30th, 1996 in Wilson, Oklahoma. Wilson is a small town in Carter County, a place where everybody knew each other. A lot of people are even related. Wilson is also in Chickasaw country, and Molly was part Chickasaw. She grew up living with her mother, Melissa, but often stayed with her grandparents too, who lived just a few blocks away. And her Chickasaw heritage was on one side of her family. I think it was her father's side. I'm forgetting now. But just because if you see pictures of her, it's not immediately noticeable. Very interesting though. Like, how cool is that? So she lived with her mother, Melissa, but she did stay with her grandparents a lot too, who lived just a few blocks away. And Molly was described as an athlete who was great at literally every sport that she tried. I will never know what that's like. She particularly enjoyed softball and basketball, and she had lots of softball trophies. She loved showing them off to anyone who would visit. And she was also, like, her family described her as feisty, a girl who wanted to do things her own way. She would speak her mind no matter what the consequence might be. Her cousin, said that she was the kind of girl who she might not start anything, but she will dang sure finish it. And she always stuck up for people that, were her friends. And, she was seemed like the kind of person who's like, this injustice will not stand, like, I see something happening and I have to speak up about it kind of thing. Molly went to a local vocational high school and she was planning on attending nursing school after graduation. And remember, she's only 17, so young. Friends said that Molly was bubbly and happy, and she was the type of person that people just gravitated towards. She had a really big heart. She cared deeply for her loved ones. Two of those people who held a very special place in Molly's heart were her grandparents. And when her grandmother ended up passing away, Molly took it really, really hard. And around this time is when people who knew Molly said that she kind of started to change. She started hanging out with a different crowd of people that were really heavy into drugs. She still would stay with her grandfather a lot, but her family described this time as like she was giving him a hard time. It was just like difficult years for all of them. The rural area of Oklahoma that Molly and her family lived in had a known problem with drugs, particularly methamphetamine. Methamphetamine, I don't know why I said it like that. Some of the people that Molly began hanging out with were known to be involved in the manufacturing, selling, and use of methamphetamine. Unfortunately, Molly fell in deeper with this group of people, and she started to dabble in drug use herself. In the summer of 2013, just before her junior year of high school, Molly met 22-year-old Colt Haynes. Now, there's not much publicized about Colt's personal life, but many people who knew him thought that he was just a genuinely really nice guy. Colt, like many people his age in the area, also struggled with drugs. He'd made some poor choices in his life. I mean, he's 22 years old, he's a kid still. And again, if you look into this case, if you watch anything on it, you read anything on it, Molly's family have been very, very outspoken, vocal. They have really, really pushed for really everything that's happened in this case. So we know a lot more about Molly than we do about Colt. There's just not that much information out there about him, unfortunately. On June 28th, 2013, Molly got in a big fight with her mom, Melissa, and then she left the house to go stay at a friend's house. Around this time is believed to be when Molly, who again was just 17 years old, and that's when she officially met Colt. And for the next week or so, Molly spent the night at different friends' houses. She was partying, reportedly using drugs. On July the 7th, Molly was picked up by Colt and 22-year-old James Con Nip, who went by Con around 10:30 p.m. And if you're thinking like this is like a Khan, like kind of cool Con, you'd be fucking wrong. It's Con like a fucking con man. I've seen it spelled C-O-N and then C-O-N-N. So surely his family did not name him just like James 4 felonies Nip. But anyway, it's Con. What the fuck? I really hope it's a nickname. I hope it's not his fucking middle name. I mean, according to my husband, you don't need middle names. And he tried to name our first son's middle name Ghostbuster. And I thought he was joking, but like, I'm not totally sure that he was. Which I was like, what are these kids going to say if we name them something and their middle name is Ghostbuster and they have to put that on a resume? And he was like, they're going to think it's awesome. And we finally told our son recently that he wanted to make his middle name Ghostbuster. And immediately Ben said, that's awesome. So he was right, but I didn't let him do it. It's okay. Everything's fine. All right. So anyway, but this guy's name is fucking Con. He goes by Con. I hate him. I hate everything about him. Con was well known in the area for his constant run-ins with law enforcement. And if you think this is just like, oh, he gets pulled over because he has a tail light out, or he gets caught using or selling drugs, or he gets caught buying drugs, or he's, like all of these different reasons that you might, quote, have run-ins with the law. He got stopped for petty theft, or no, you're not ready. You're not ready. Okay. So he had run-ins with law enforcement all the time, but his uncle, Joe Russell, was the Love County sheriff. Like, not a deputy, the fucking sheriff. How in the fuck this man became sheriff honestly needs to be studied in like law schools or something. Who studies stuff like that? Whoever does that, study this, because it's bad and it should never happen again. However that happened should never happen again. One of Con's favorite pastimes, y'all, was purposefully getting into trouble with the police and then having his uncle get him out of it. But you're just not ready for how he does that. So on July the 7th, after he picked up Molly, Con drove her and Colt to a nearby convenience store to grab beer. As they left the store, Con saw Wilson police officer Ryan Parsley parked in a lot across the street. So Con decides, and this is on their main street, and anywhere that you have ever been, if there is a main street, like it's called Main Street, It's usually in like the square area, the downtown area. I cannot imagine the speed limit on this road was more than 30, 40 miles an hour, tops, right? So he decides, he sees that cop and he's like, I'm going to have some fun. So he guns it out of there and passes this cop sitting in that parking lot going at least 80 miles an hour, if not more. And the officer said, "Not today, Satan. You're not you're not getting me today, Con. I know it's you. I know it's your dumb ass. I ain't even fucking with it. I'm not even going to fuck with it. I'm not taking the bait." So he doesn't pull him over. And this is around like 10:46 p.m. So Con, not being satisfied, turns around. He is taunting this police officer. So he turns around, he goes back into the parking lot and he starts doing freaking donuts in the parking lot and he's spraying gravel all over this police officer's cruiser. So at this point, the officer is like, "You got to be fucking kidding me. All right, fine. I'll get you." So he turns his lights on. He starts pursuing Con, who of course is leading the officer on a high-speed chase. And if you think this is something that this is the first time Con has done this, you are out of your damn mind. Because this is what he does all the time. Like to the point that when somebody, and this is his girlfriend's car, by the way, this isn't even his car, but they just expect it to be Con because of the like taunting and flying by a police officer, knowing that they're sitting there going like 80 miles above the speed limit and then turn around and get, like they know it's Con. He does this all the time. So now they're in a high-speed chase with a 2012 black Honda Accord, which also, I did not know Accords could just fucking get it like that, because they're going down Highway 76 towards Love County, and he's going 120 miles per hour, sometimes more than that. So the pursuing officer calls in for backup, and radio traffic explained that the officers believed that it was Con in the vehicle. Now, they don't know that anybody else is in the vehicle. They think it's just Con. The car starts heading towards Long Hollow Road and Oswald, going through Carter County, Carter County, and then entering Love County. Other officers had begun heading toward the western side of the county to block the road when Sheriff Joe Russell, and remember that is Con's uncle, comes on the radio and instructed them to, quote, 1022, which means cancel the pursuit. And he gets on the radio and he's like, "Hey, y'all, if y'all just want to, if y'all just want 1022, y'all just do that." And they're like, "Okay." So they pull back and Con keeps on going. And he's heading toward the area of Long Hollow Road, which is a dead end road. An officer said that at the time, again, they did not know anybody else was in the car with him. So at that point, Molly and Colt are in the car with Con, but they just don't know it. Con keeps going, and he's driving through ravines and ditches. He's crashing through fences. He totals the fucking car. I hope his girlfriend broke up with him that day. My God. Eventually, he got out and ran, and then he left, he just left Molly and Colt in the car. And they probably were like, "I need to do like a deep breathing exercise. That was scary as hell. What the fuck?" I'm sure they thought they were going to get in a car accident. They thought they were going to get arrested, like all the stuff. And honestly, if they'd gotten arrested, it would have been preferable to what happened. At 12:57 a.m., so this is now July the 8th, Molly's phone dialed 911, but all the dispatcher could hear was like buttons being pressed on the other end. That call lasted about 5 seconds before disconnecting, and then the dispatcher did try to call Molly back, but nobody answered, and nobody was dispatched to the area. Around 3 a.m., Colt called one of his friends and told them that he had broken his leg and that he was bleeding, but he didn't know exactly where he was. So 4 friends, Benita, Devin, Colby, and Rob, went out to look for Colt and Molly on 4-wheelers, searching the area of Long Hollow Road, but they couldn't find them. After searching for them for a while and still unable to see anything in the dark, the 4 friends decided to go home and wait for the sun to come up. I mean, it's woods, it's dark. You've got some lights on the 4-wheelers, but not much. Several more phone calls were made from Molly and Colt's phones to friends, asking for help and hoping they'd be able to find them out in the woods. Around 9 a.m., the four friends began their search for Molly and Colt again. They were able to get Colt on the phone, who told them to go to Con Nip's house because he could tell them exactly where he had left them. And when the group gets to Con's house, several family members met them outside, including Con, and told them that he had no idea where Colt and Molly were and they just needed to leave. So this pisses Colt off, and he's like, you give him the phone because he knows where the fuck I am. And so they give the phone to Con, and friends could hear him screaming over the line at Con that he knew where they were, he better come get them. Con continued to deny knowing where they were. And his aunt told the group that they were trespassing and they needed to leave their property. And then at 9:39 a.m., Molly's phone went dead. And shortly after, at 9:56 a.m., Colt's phone went dead. No further activity was ever detected on either cell phone, and Colt and Molly have not been seen or heard from since. This is an insane case all the way around because presumably these two people were left in the woods where everybody was combing through. Everybody knew that Con had wrecked his car, they were in it, and he jumped out and ran. Like, it would have been so easy to fucking just say, yeah, this is where I left him. Why? I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. But let's talk about the investigation. 2 weeks after Colt and Molly disappeared, Love County Sheriff deputies located the vehicle that Con was driving that night. It was about 1,500 feet from the Nips property line. No sign of blood or foul play were noted in the vehicle. Why did that take 2 weeks? Were they looking for Colt and Molly? Because it doesn't seem like they were. They were looking for that damn car, though. The Honda was registered to Sabrina Graham, which was Con's girlfriend, who had reported it stolen the night of the police chase. She said that Con had the vehicle during the day with her permission and brought the car back to her about 30 minutes before the police chase began. And then when she woke up early the next morning, she said that she found out, realized her vehicle was gone, and so she'd reported it stolen. She was eventually arrested and charged with making a false insurance claim and filing a false police report about the stolen vehicle. And she pleaded guilty and was given a 3-year sentence. I don't know if that's just because she knew he had it. And I don't know. A warrant was ultimately issued for Con for eluding police and endangering others during the police chase he started on the night Molly and Colt disappeared. He said that he had no idea where they were, but he was adamant that they'd run off to, quote, not quote Wichita Falls, but quote, run off to Wichita Falls. Where did that information come from? He's like, oh yeah, they ran away. They definitely went to Wichita Falls. That's what they said they were going to do. They were going to run off to Wichita Falls. Motherfucker, they called everybody they knew and said, we've been left in the woods. Somebody come get us. There was no plan to go to Wichita Falls. Just stop. There is conflicting information as to when there were official searches for Molly and Colt. However, as soon as Molly's family realized that she was missing, they immediately started looking. On July the 8th, one of Molly's cousins got a call from Melissa, Molly's mother, and she had seen on Facebook that people were looking for Molly and that she seemed to be missing. So Molly had told Melissa that she would be at the lake for the weekend, but it does seem like that never happened. And remember, they had been in a fight. She was kind of couch surfing, just hanging out with different friends, stuff like that. So, kids do that all the time, which obviously terrifies me now that I'm a parent, because I'm like, I want you to tell me where you are so that I really know where you are, so that I really know what you're doing. Obviously, you're not going to get a play-by-play every minute. You're not going to be like, okay, well, now I'm in the car with this person. Okay, now I'm in the car with that person. But, she said she was going away for the weekend. She'd come back I don't know. But nobody could find her and nobody could find Colt either. Around 9 a.m. on July the 8th, while Molly and Colt were trying to get in touch with friends, and while their friends were out on four-wheelers trying to locate them, Melissa, Molly's mother, went to the Wilson Police Department to file a report for her daughter, either runaway or missing person. But she said, Molly had run away before, but she'd always come back after a day or two. This time it's been more than a week. I think she's missing. And later, people would ask, why didn't Molly try to call her family to come find her? And her family thinks that while Molly realized, okay, this is a bad situation, like this sucks, I'm out in the woods and I need to get back home, she didn't necessarily think that she was in any danger at that point. And she was probably more concerned about getting in trouble than anything else, which makes a lot of sense to me. Melissa also got in touch with the Love County Sheriff's Department to report Molly missing. And as the dispatcher was taking the report, she told Sheriff Joe Russell, Con's uncle, that Molly's mother was on the phone trying to file a missing persons report on Molly. And Russell said, "That's not my problem. You're not taking that report." And you could maybe argue jurisdiction. She didn't go missing from Love County, but we know that the car ended up in Love County and now she's missing. So, and she was in the fucking car. So yeah, you need to take that report. 2 weeks following the disappearance, Paula Fielder, Molly's cousin, who has largely spearheaded the search and investigation into Molly and Colt's disappearance, contacted Tim Miller and Texas EquiSearch. You guys know Texas EquiSearch. They're a nonprofit organization that helps with the search and recovery of missing persons. Using their resources, EquiSearch and Molly and Colt's friends and family conducted a widespread search of the area where the two were last known to be, as well as the surrounding areas. They looked in ditches, wells, ravines, under bridges, but they found no signs of Molly or Colt. In the years since Molly and Colt's disappearance, their friends and family have done their best to figure out what happened in the days leading up to the police chase that night. And in an interview with Partners in True Crime, which is a podcast that did an in-depth series on Molly and Colt, Paula explained what they had discovered. So on the days leading up to the chase and them disappearing, Molly had been staying at the house of a man named Josh Davis in Ardmore. On July 5th, 2 days before the chase, Molly, Colt, and at least 2 other guys were caught on surveillance video in the parking lot of the nearby Wilson Casino while a drug deal was taking place. On July the 6th, 2 of the friends who'd gone searching for Molly and Colt picked the 2 of them up from Josh Davis's house, and they went to another friend's house by the name of Rob, and Rob was one of Con's cousins. One of the girls who reported this information was positive that it was July 6th because that day was also her birthday. This is likely when Con and Colt and Molly all crossed paths. Con and Colt had a spotty history. They were not friends. Katie, who was the mother of Colt's son, he was 10 months old at the time, dated Con before she dated Colt, and there was reportedly a history of abuse on Con's side. When Katie found out that Colt and Con had hung out, she said that it was really strange and that the only reason they would have been hanging out willingly with each other would have been because of drugs. Witnesses said that Colt and Josh were dealing and using drugs, and Colt told Josh that Con told him that if they took their drugs over to his people, they could double their money. At that time, Colt and Josh had at least $1,800 worth of drugs on them. On the morning of July the 7th, Con picked Molly and Colt up and took them to Rob's house, and they left Molly there, which was confirmed by phone records of her calling both Colt and Con to have them come pick her up. An unconfirmed tip reported that Rob's wife woke up and found Molly and Rob doing drugs in the kitchen. His wife, who was trying to get sober, was upset and she made Molly leave. Around this time is when Colt and Con came back and they picked Molly up. Sometime following this is when the infamous police chase occurred and Con ditched Molly and Colt in the woods. Con, who was apparently related to literally everyone in the whole friggin' state, was also a distant cousin of Molly. And many people who knew him and Molly said that Con actually liked Molly. They didn't think that he would hurt her or get her into dangerous situations or anything like that. But also, what do we know about Con? He only cares about himself, and if he thinks he's going to get in trouble in any way, shape, or form, I just think he doesn't think about other people, like at all. A few days after the police chase, one of Molly's cousins, Misty, got a call from Molly's uncle. Someone had sent him a message saying that Molly was tied to a tree at the end of Long Hollow Road and that she'd been sexually assaulted by multiple people. This tip also said that the people holding Molly were keeping her high on drugs, and they also had a shock collar on her that they would use in case she caused any problems. And at one point, there was actually like a grand jury. We'll get to what the grand jury was about, but a witness who says that they were either present for this or somebody told them about it. I forget. Well, no, Con. This person testified that Con told them about this. That they said that Molly had been tied to a tree and they'd run a train on her. And so the attorney, like prosecutor, I guess, asking the question said, for anybody here who doesn't know what is running a train on someone? And the witness testified that the definition of running a train is when multiple people sleep with her one after the other. And I literally, reading that, yelled out, rape. They rape her one after the other. They rape her. She's not consenting in this case. I know it's like nuanced-ish. It's like, oh, well, they sleep with her. No, they don't. They rape her. They rape her. They're rapists. They raped. Don't. I hate that. Anyway, as soon as Molly's uncle heard this, he immediately drove over to the area. He found the road to be blocked by law enforcement who told them that everything's fine because Sheriff Joe Russell was on the case and he was there checking it out. And he didn't find anything, so must not have been a credible tip. He's there, don't worry about it, but everything's blocked off. You don't go look, but I've already checked it out and everything's fine. So now we're going to get to the theories. Some people speculate that after becoming lost in the woods, Colt and Molly died of exposure. July in Oklahoma you'd be in the 90s and hundreds without food and water. That could get very dangerous. And remember, Colt had told his friends that he'd broken his leg. It's possible that he had tried to climb up in a tree, maybe to get his bearings, look around, and he had fallen out of the tree because he did tell a friend that he had fallen out of a tree. So, if he had a broken leg, that would slow him down. It might, all of those things. He wouldn't be able to move very much. But people who knew Molly said she was really familiar with the area. And even though she probably wouldn't have wanted to leave Colt, she could have made it to a road, flag somebody down, and then come back and got him help. They're not in the fucking wilderness 100 miles from anybody. They're fucking 1,500 feet from where Con's house is, or his property anyway. It's not that far. It's not that far. They could have made it to a road and they could have flagged somebody down. I do not believe, when I first started looking into this, I was like, well, obviously they died in the woods. They got lost in the woods and they died and they just haven't found their body. But then you get to this part and you're like, no, there's just no way. Once you actually understand the area, no, there's no way. So this ties into another theory that Molly did go for help and was abducted and murdered by someone who gave her a ride. And then Colt, still injured in the woods, maybe he died of exposure. But no remains have ever been found. So that also doesn't really seem likely. Like Con told people after the chase, there remains the possibility that Colt and Molly did leave the area voluntarily and ran away. But those who knew them don't believe this is likely. Colt, yes, he struggled with addiction. He had his own problems, but he did have a 10-month-old son that he cared very much about. And, Molly had a history of running off for a couple days and coming back. And she was 17 and she had made some bad decisions, but nobody believed that she would have left like this, literally just never making contact with any of her friends or family again. Also, there's never been any activity on social media again. Their phones went dead. None of it. She's 17. She doesn't have any money. The most widely discussed and believed theory involves foul play. Many people say that there are several locals who know what happened and who was involved, but are too scared to say anything, especially considering that one of the people involved has significant pull with law enforcement. It's possible that after Colt and Molly were left in the woods, Con returned to his property. Once their friends confronted Con at his home, he went out to where he had left them and he picked them up, possibly by himself or with other people, and then brought them back to his property. And from this point on, the stories all vary slightly. Some say that Colt was immediately killed and possibly thrown in a well. Some believe that the information that Molly's uncle received that night about her being tied to a tree and assaulted was actually true. And this wouldn't be the first time that something like this had happened in the area in the midst of the drug trade. Paula, remember Molly's cousin, told Partners in True Crime podcast, quote, "I have spoken to other girls who have been in this world with these same players, with these same people. It's like a joke to tie these girls to a tree and drug them and have sex with them while they're tied to a tree. What is happening? Let me tell you something right now. For anybody who has seen the "Would you choose a bear or a man to be alone in the woods with?" Do you fucking see why we wouldn't choose a man? Because let me tell you something. If I come across a bear in the woods, he might maul my ass and have me for a snack, but he damn sure is not going to tie me to a tree and call all of his bear friends so they can take turns raping me. Not going to do it. Simply not going to do it. And if I make enough noise, he might just go away. Where's Molly? If she'd encountered a bear in these fucking woods, we'd know where she is. Don't. This shit really makes me very upset. Anyway, but that was just their like, oh, that's fun. Let's tie people to trees, drug them up, put shock collars on them in case they have the audacity to say no or try to get away. And then let's just like rape them over and over and over and over. And then, because what are they going to do about it? Paula and most others close to the investigation are confident that there are people out there who know exactly what happened that night. And she even told the Oklahoma newspaper that she was sure that this case could be easily solved if somebody came forward. And it could. It could. These people's families deserve to at least know where they are. I don't think that they're alive, and their families don't think they're alive anymore either. Let them lay their family members to rest, have a place to go back and visit. Like, come on. She said there are several people who know exactly what happened to Molly and Colt, and I plead with you to help us. Let us have peace. We didn't start this, but we will finish it. We're not going to let go until Molly and Colt are home. Tips have continued to flood in about Molly and Colt, particularly once the Partners in True Crime podcast began bringing even more light to the case. There were several people whose names were often brought up in these tips. One name in particular was a young man named Jason. Because he hasn't been officially named as a person of interest and much of the information about him is alleged, we will just stick to the first name, but you could Google and find his full name if you want to. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm just saying we don't have hard facts, so we're just going to stick with that. In January of 2013, about 6 or so months before he disappeared, Colt was arrested, along with Jason and Jason's girlfriend, on charges involving methamphetamine. Jason ultimately did not officially get charged, and Colt's charges were surprisingly dismissed, even though it was a second arrest for the same charge. Paula spoke with someone who was close with Colt and Jason during this time, who said that Jason believed that Colt was given a deal by the police if he would give them information on Jason, who apparently had a meth lab in his house. Paranoid, Jason got rid of the lab in his house, which was raided shortly after by police. So could this have been a motive maybe for targeting Colt? And while a lot of people assume that Colt and Molly were romantically involved, from all accounts, they were not. Paula, Molly's cousin, I keep wanting to call her her aunt. It's her cousin. She thinks that maybe Molly might have had a crush on him. He's 22, she's 17, but they'd only met a week earlier. Colt was in a relationship already with a young woman named Stormy McPeak at the time of his disappearance. She has not spoken much about Colt or Molly publicly, but she did eventually give an interview to the Partners in True Crime podcast. So Stormy knew everybody involved in Colt's life. They had been dating for 4 or 5 months. Stormy, like Colt, did struggle with addiction, and while the party lifestyle was what brought them together, they did have a really good relationship. Stormy said that Colt was loving and supportive. He'd do anything for anyone, and she couldn't imagine why anyone would want to hurt him. Stormy knew both Con and Jason well, and that allegedly Jason had a significant history of violence against women. She told Partners in True Crime that she'd seen Jason beat his girlfriend and that he even essentially kidnapped her once, and she eventually escaped and ran away. Stormy reported this to the police, but to her knowledge, not a damn thing came of it. I cannot. During the time leading up to Colt and Molly's disappearance, Stormy said that Jason had been threatening her both to her face and Colt through others. Colt was so concerned about Stormy's safety and obviously believed that Jason was capable of following through on his threats that he told Stormy to get out of town and he was going to take care of things. Colt reportedly told Stormy this just a few days before he disappeared. Around that same time is when Stormy said that she saw Colt for the very last time. She dropped him off near the Wilson Casino where he got in a white pickup truck that was driven by a male with Molly sitting in the middle. Stormy did not recognize the driver, though. Stormy said that she has been told multiple times by many different people that Con intended to pick up her and Colt that night, that Molly was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Paula also said that she'd heard rumors that Jason had instructed Con to pick up Colt and Stormy that night. Was Molly's being in the car that night just a horrible coincidence? Can you imagine? Oh my gosh. That's so sad. Okay, but now we have to talk about fucking Joe Russell. And remember, this is Con's uncle. He is the sheriff of Love County. In January of 2014, Con was in another police chase. Remember his favorite pastime, police chases. Except this time, he done went to fuck around and find out university and he about to get his bachelor's degree. Because this time, he started a high-speed police chase with the fucking Oklahoma Highway Patrol. And the state troopers do not give a fuck about Joe Russell. They don't give a fuck. He ends up causing an officer to go airborne in his vehicle, and that officer hits a tree. So Con was arrested and charged with assault with a dangerous weapon, eluding police, and unauthorized use of a vehicle. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Yes! But he was released in 2018 after serving just 4 years. Aw. So close. So close. 8 months after Molly and Colt's disappearances, a 911 call was made accidentally by Con's uncle, Colby Barrick. How? What? Like, maybe the emergency button on his phone? I don't know. Anyway, because somebody who's involved in a shit ton of illegal activity, you certainly aren't dialing 911 all the time, are you? Payne Lindsay, everybody knows Payne Lindsay, host of Up and Vanished, said of the recording, quote, "From the sounds of it, he was describing how Molly and Colt were allegedly murdered." Now, there is a transcript of the call. It is so very difficult to understand. I hear at one point Molly Miller, but I don't hear anything else. It's very muffled. His phone, it's obviously like a butt dial. But the transcript says, quote, "You're fucking mad. You're fucking tired. Fucking Moxley Lake, a buck knife, Molly Miller. They shot him in the mouth right there. I can put my finger all the way through it." I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't hear hardly anything, honestly, but that's what they say is said. The 911 dispatcher then heard what sounded like water splashing and then 2 gunshots. The phone that the call came from pinged near Moxley Lake, just north of Long Hollow Road. So officers were dispatched to the area, including Sheriff Joe Russell. 3 men were found on the property, all felons, all with firearms. And they were like, "I don't know, man, we're just fishing. Is that a problem? We just wanted to go fishing." But they all had firearms on them and they're all felons. They should have been arrested. But guess what? They were not. They were ticketed for trespassing and they were just let go. Moxley Lake was eventually searched unofficially by Paula along with several others under the supervision of a retired FBI agent, but nothing was found. In 2018, Barrick, the cousin who was believed to be the one who made the accidental 911 call, was arrested on unrelated firearm charges and sentenced to 46 months in prison. Reportedly, he also told law enforcement while in custody that Molly and Colt's bodies were in the pond. In July of 2016, Love County Sheriff Joe Russell was arrested and charged with corruption and willful neglect of duty. While serving as the sheriff, Russell had allowed several people, including his son, to essentially manufacture and sell methamphetamine out of his own home. He also allowed his son's girlfriend, who had 4 warrants out for her arrest, to stay at his home without informing law enforcement. You fucking dipshit! Russell accepted a plea deal for a misdemeanor, pleading no contest to willful omission to perform a duty. He was sentenced to 1 year of unsupervised probation and to pay $300 in court costs, and he removed his own fucking self from the role of sheriff. He suspended himself. What is happening? In the 2015 grand jury testimonies that were considering corruption and drug charges, a witness testified that Molly was taken to a property on Long Hollow Road. They had a big party there, multiple people. That's when they ran the train on Molly, they said. The witness said that he was told this information by Con, who said that he was there, Con Nip. Now, after all this, Joe Russell does not go to jail for anything. You mean to tell me that this man is manufacturing meth out of his home? There are 2 people missing essentially on his property, is his family's property. It's common for this property and for those who are manufacturing the drugs, which we now know is him, he's the manufacturer, to tie women to trees and have them raped. Y'all, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I don't know if I'm going to make it on this one, okay? All right. So, but hey, let's don't put him in jail. You want to make meth? You can make meth, I guess. That's just fine. Which, like, I don't know. I guess if you were just going to make meth, then sure. But what about all the other shit that comes along with having a fucking drug house? Like, grr. Okay. Paula told Partners in True Crime that she often goes back to Labor Day week in 2013, just a few months after Molly and Colt disappeared. She, Molly's mother, and another one of Molly's cousins went to Con's house to beg him for answers. And Paula was pleading with him, like, just tell us where she is. I know she's not alive anymore, but just tell us where she is. And she said that Con started tearing up. He had tears in his eyes. And he said, I don't want to go to jail. And it really seemed like he was about to give her some information. And then his Aunt Jennifer stepped in and was like, this is over. You're done talking. Get out of here. And Paula strongly believes that if Jennifer had not been there that day, Con would have told them what he knew about Molly and Colt. And a lot of people think that Con knows what happened to Molly and Colt. A lot of them, including, it seems like Paula, she doesn't necessarily think that he killed them. He just knows what happened, which is terrible. But, you know, on January 13th, 2021, Molly's family officially declared her deceased. Paula explained that this was a necessary move to further the investigation and hopefully prosecution in the future. In 2022, the Bureau of Indian Affairs took over the investigation because Molly was part of the Chickasaw Nation. If you have any information regarding the disappearances of Molly Miller or Colt Haynes, please contact the Bureau of Indian Affairs at 1-833-560-2065. And if you want to hear more in-depth interviews and details about the case, please check out Partners in True Crime podcast. They did the heavy lifting. We're just condensing the story here, but there is so much more to this case, you guys, so check it out. And let me know what you think. What do you think happened? Obviously, I don't live in Oklahoma. I'm sure that I could find a way to die of exposure in the middle of a neighborhood in the summer, but is that what you think happened in the backwoods? Do you think they were murdered? Do you think they ran away? Do you know something? Let someone know. All right. Love you guys. See you next week. If you like this episode, be sure to like this episode and follow the show so that you never miss out on new episodes. Get in on the conversation on Facebook and Instagram. You can find us at Killer Queens Pod, or you can join our Facebook discussion group at Killer Queens Podcast, where we discuss cases covered on the show and all things 90s. If you want to submit a case to be covered on the show, visit killerqueenspodcast.com/case submission and just complete the form. And if we cover the case, we'll give you a shout out on the show. Lilas.